This is the Dynasty Market Report, where we look at a specific asset in Dynasty Fantasy Football, be it a pick or a player, and we talk about how is the market moving around this player, what are they going for in trades, because everyone understands buy low, sell high. But what if you don't know what low is? What if you don't know what high is? So we have these videos to help you figure that out. And if you have been liking these, please let me know with a like, a comment, or a subscribe. Even just a simple comment saying, hey, I like these. Like, I feel it. I respond to those. Those make my day. Today, we are talking about Puka Nacua. Now, sometimes on these videos, we take a look back and we talk about what happened in the year. There's not that much to say. Puka Nacua was wide receiver number 1. If you're newer to fantasy football, or maybe you're just getting into Dynasty or just getting into fantasy in general, this is one of the best wide receivers. So when we're looking at trades, the prices are going to be high. Now, rather than going and through the stats and saying why Puka's great, we're just going to skip that, say he's excellent. And let's talk about a bigger thing here. Sometimes in Dynasty Fantasy Football, there are players where, fantasy players who say, I can't move this guy. He's too good. You can't move him. And I never ascribe to that. So we're going to look at some trades today around, a lot of it is going to be tearing down from Puka Nacua, because there are some obvious swaps you can make that we can start with. But I think one of the better things you can do is gain value by moving back to a player that isn't as highly thought of, but could still produce really highly, and picking up extra value and liquidity on top of that. So let's pull up the rankings here. So like I was saying, Puka Nacua, this is wide receivers and running backs. Even if we add in quarterbacks, if we're just looking for crossovers, trading Puka Nacua for Josh Allen, Puka Nacua for Drake May, Puka Nacua for Bijan Robinson, all fair. If someone decides, oh, you need to throw a third or a fourth on either side of that deal, I'm not really going to put up that much of a stink. Sometimes I will think of a third or a fourth round pick in a rookie draft just as kind of a ticket to make a deal go through. So if you wanted to swap from Puka Nacua to Jahmyr Gibbs, running back, basically equivalent values. And if someone says, give me a fourth on top of Gibbs, fine. Or a fourth on top of Puka, fine. I don't think that's that controversial. Now let's jump into some deals where you might be down tiering. So something I want to say before we get into this is, remember where we were last year. In Dynasty startups, Puka Nacua was going second round. So a 12-team Superflex Dynasty startup. I did a lot of those last year. Puka Nacua was early second to mid second round pick, right around someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown. So when we say something like that, we can also go a little bit further and say, Amon-Ra St. Brown could be wide receiver 1 next year. Puka Nacua could be, Jamar Chase could be, JSN was right up in there, he could be. But these guys a little bit further down, how many of them still could be wide receiver 1 next year? Malik Neighbors could be, Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb could all be the top wide receiver, and other players could take a step back and the values will shift. So in the offseason, after you get a big value win, you say you were 1 year into your league, you drafted Puka in the second round, and now he's one of the most valuable pieces. It is okay to down tier to someone else who has all of that value upside and get more solid liquidity. So examples of that here, Puka Nacua for Omarion Hampton and the 102 in this year's draft. Now, you might not get this deal in every league. You would need someone to want to make this swap, but it's going to light up a trade calculator, and it kind of gives all this extra value and locks it in on your roster. You can do this similarly with down tiering to Drake London and an early first, Amon-Ra St. Brown and a 27 first. These are all things that I would be open to doing. Puka Nacua for a first and Malik Neighbors. These guys, Malik Neighbors, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, all have a shot to be top 5 wide receivers, and then you get extra value that isn't going to go away. Pick values really just go up until you are at the draft for your league where you can swap them for other players or use them to make a pick. So I do want to have this concept out there that it is okay to down tier. Something that I might add onto some of these deals, let's say if this was the 103 and I could only get the 105, I might start adding in just some roster cleanup and saying, I'm getting rid of the best player in the deal, but you're going to let me send you Ramondre Stevenson for the 208, which might not be a perfect value lineup, but you're letting me turn this player who might become nothing into a pick that is easier to trade. So if you're trading away someone like Puka, try to add in, and unless you're getting a massive overpay, try to add in something like this. I'm going to get rid of Ramondre Stevenson, and you're going to give me better value here. We're just doing a value swap, but I'm giving you the best player, so you give me cleaner value. Like, there are not that many people that want to trade for Ramondre Stevenson. You could do this with players like Kyler Murray's coming to mind, but he's on the lower end, or DJ Moore at wide receiver. Start thinking of the guys on your team, or even like Adonai Mitchell, a player who might become something, but if you just want to get a later second round pick back for him, that's a way that I would use one of these great players. So we can down tier, we can use them to clean up some of the value that we have. Let's take a look at some other real trades that have happened other than my hypothetical ones. And we'll talk about how we feel about them. So would I move Puka Nacua for Drake May with a 28 fourth thrown in there? That's exactly the type of thing that I was talking about before. You could take this 4th round pick and stick it on the other side. Stick it on the other side, and it doesn't really change the deal for me. It's really just kind of a ticket to make it go through. So if you have a wide receiver and you need a great quarterback, this is a fine swap. The value for these guys is going to stay the same through the offseason, barring any sort of injury. So I would be fine with making just a positional swap. The values are basically equivalent. Would I do Puka Nacua for Jack Besh, a first, a second? No. So when I say it's okay to down tier from a player, I want to always do it in steps. So if I have a team that has Puka Nacua and almost nothing else, there's still no chance I'm doing a deal like this. I'm going to down tier from Puka to one of those trades that we were showing you before, Malik Neighbors, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and get something on top. I'm going to get Drake London and get something on top. And then I'm going to tier down from that guy and get more on top. Even if I end up getting down to Jack Besh, I'm going to pick up more picks, more higher quality picks as well. More firsts, early seconds. I don't really want to get into a random 27 second, a random 28 second if I'm down tiering. So I want to do it in steps rather than one big chunk, because you'll end up with more value if you do it stepping down, and you can do cleanups on the way. Like on this deal, there's no way the Puka side should be taking in a player like Jack Besh. It should be the Puka side sending away a player like Jack Besh who did not hit in his first year and getting a 2nd round pick again to try again or something like that. Here, Puka Nacua for Devon Achane and Zay Flowers. This is one of those tier downs where it's very close, and I would really need to see some cleanup on the Puka side. The value probably lights up a calculator and feels okay, but it doesn't seem like enough of an overpay like we were talking about with a deal like this, Hampton and the 102 for Puka. It's the same kind of idea going to Achane and Zay Flowers, but it doesn't seem like enough. So I would rather have the Zay Flowers be an earlier 1st round pick. Unless I knew that I could take Zay Flowers and get the 104, I'm probably going to stay with Puka here. Puka for Jaden Higgins, Harold Fannin, Genty, and a 2nd. So this is really Puka for Genty, and then does this package kind of fit what we were looking for? If we had Puka as Hampton, like we've been talking, or Puka for Genty, and we would be treating Genty like we were Hampton, can we get to a lot of value from these other players? Harold Fannin is close in a 0.5 point tight end premium, and then a 2nd in Jaden Higgins. Sort of. It's starting to get even. I don't know that I would necessarily do it if I had Puka. I mean, maybe if you're really feeling Jaden Higgins, or your league trades a lot and you knew you could move Jaden Higgins and a 2nd for more, or roll stuff back up again. Really, the main deal breaker here for me is the Jaden Higgins and a 2nd. I'd like that to be a 1st, or I'd like to know that I could take Higgins and a 2nd in 28 and get to a pretty good 1st this year or next year. How about something like this? Puka and a 1st for AJ Brown, Jonathan Taylor, and Zay Flowers. I'm going to stay with the Puka side here. Puka Nacua for Fannin, Hampton, and a 1st. So we were kind of talking same thing here. Once we're starting to get Hampton, a 1st, Fannin, this ends up being enough for me. We've been saying Puka for Hampton plus, so getting a 27 random 1st as opposed to the 104 this year, but Harold Fannin thrown on top and a tight end premium. that would be enough where you're getting a lot of extra value, and then you could down tier from Hampton or pair Fannin and this first and up tier from this tight end and come out looking really solid. How about a deal like this? Puka for Judkins, Tet, and Adonai Mitchell. I think the downside here is I want something a little bit more sure, where Ted is kind of getting outside of that range. Judkins is almost getting a little bit outside of that one step down range. And then Adonai Mitchell isn't really adding anything here. So, I mean, we could basically just cross him off in players this high of value. I will take someone like Adonai Mitchell and say, like, he doesn't really even play in this trade. You could put him on the other side and it doesn't really change the value a ton for me. So if I'm doing this with Puka Nacua, I just need to be cleaning stuff up. I need to be the one sending Adonai Mitchell and getting value for Mitchell. Almost treat it like two separate trades in your mind. Puka for Judkins and McMillan, and Adonai for an early second. And then on top of that, you would be throwing in, I'm looking like a Mac Jones for a third, things like that, or Mac Jones for a second. I'm just reading players off the screen and trying to say, if you're trading Puka away, you have to be accomplishing something, not just getting value. You also have to be taking other things and turning them into better things, or things that are you could trade more easily, even if it's the same value. So that's going to start to wrap stuff up for us here. If you've made it to the end, thank you very much. We'll have another video on screen for you to check out. We are dropping these Monday through Friday. If there's a specific player you would like to see, let me know in the comments. We can change it up. We can shake up our plan and get them on the list sooner rather than later. Thank you very much for sticking with me to the end. We'll see you in the next one.